What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for listening to the Fit2Fat2Fit Experience Podcast. I am your host, Drew Manning.
And I am your co-host, Lynn Manning.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Today, we have such an awesome, amazing podcast for you guys. We are interviewing the one and only Chris Powell today. So we're super stoked for this episode, and I think you guys will really enjoy it. But first, this episode is brought to you guys by QuestNutrition.com. Now, Quest, we've been good friends with those guys for a long time. We really enjoy their products. They first launched with just a protein bar company, and we really, caught on really quickly to the quality of their product, the taste, first and foremost. I mean, there's so many protein bars out there that have 20, 30 grams of protein, but from my experience, most of them are, candy bars with protein added to them. And so, the thing we liked about Quest is that they have low sugar, low net carbs, but the taste
so good.
Is amazing. Yes, exactly. And they're not coated with chocolate so that they melt. They're actually a lot better when they're warm. One thing
I keep them in the car. I keep them in the purse. Sometimes I put them on my warm dashboard just to make them a little gooey.
Yeah, or you can even bake in the oven for a few minutes or pop in the microwave for about 8 seconds. It's got to be exactly 8 seconds though, and it comes out perfectly moist, gooey, warm. Anyways, they're delicious. Check them out at QuestNutrition.com.
Now we made everybody hungry for the episode. That's all right.
Chocolate chip cookie dough.
That's all right.
Coconut cashew. Okay, getting to today's episode, you guys. Chris Powell from the hit TV show on ABC, Extreme Weight Loss. In today's episode, you guys, we get into some very interesting topics with Chris. For example, I bet a lot of you guys didn't know that he was broke at one point in time, living out of his car before he became the host of this extremely successful TV show.
Yeah, such a humble guy.
Exactly. So we talk about his story of how he went from broke and living out of his car to now all of a sudden they're on season 5 of Extreme Weight Loss, and they're already filming season 6. So we talk about how he went from rags to riches almost, and it's an amazing story. You guys are gonna love it. We actually also get into how he eats Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Believe this or not, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, how he fits that into his current diet. As if you guys remember my Fit2Fat2Fit journey, I was addicted to Cinnamon Toast Crunch, but that's what caused me to gain weight. Now he's doing this as he's prepping for a physique competition, which is really cool. And we also talk about our first experience of when we first met, which is really funny. And then we talk about Chris's most embarrassing moment, along with a bunch of other...
A lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff. Such a great
really
guy.
Great episode. You guys are going to love this episode. So let's go hang out with Chris, you guys. Aloha, everybody. Welcome to the Fit2Fat2Fit Experience. Today we have an awesome guest, the one and only Chris Powell from Extreme Weight Loss. Now, 99.9% of you guys already know who he is, but for the 0.1% that doesn't know Chris, let me just introduce him really quick. Chris is, first of all, an awesome guy. He's a father, first and foremost, of 4 beautiful children. He's married to Heidi Powell. But most of you guys know him as the host of Extreme Weight Loss, which is on ABC. He's a New York Times bestselling author of 2 books now, right?
Correct, 2 books, and we got 1 on the way.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Thank you.
No, thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of our podcast today, Chris. We really appreciate you. And, we had the chance to interview Heidi. Now we're interviewing you. And we couldn't be more excited, man. So thank you for being on.
Well, absolutely. And obviously, thanks for having us. We've been longtime friends now. So, anytime you reach out to us, we're like, hey, we got this going on. We're like, oh, that's so cool. You guys are doing a podcast now. And so we've been thrilled to do this. So thank you for having us.
Yeah, no problem, man. And we talked about with Heidi, we felt like an instant connection, and it's rare that you find that with people where you meet someone and you feel this instant connection with them. And that's how we felt with you guys. Just to start things off, I have a really quick, funny story to tell you guys about Chris when I first met him, which is going to kind of lead into my first question. So, and Chris will remember this as I'm talking about it. So I first meet Chris in the hotel before I actually was a guest on the show. And so we're in the hotel, like cafeteria area, and we're eating, we're chatting, and things go well. And then anyways, he's got to go. And I remember I went up to my room, came down the elevator, and Chris is coming back on the elevator as I'm getting off, and he has this plate of food in his hands. And he looks at me, he's like, oh man, I knew I was going to run into you at this moment. And the cafeteria food at the hotel wasn't the healthiest stuff. And I knew there's potato salad and macaroni salad and baked beans and nothing too unhealthy. But Chris is like, oh, of course I had to run into you at this moment. But It's what I love about you. You know, you're real. It's not like you bring chicken and broccoli with you on the airplane when you travel. You have to eat, you have to adjust and eat real food when you're out and about. But the question I had was, Chris, do you feel like there's a lot of pressure when you're out in public to eat a certain way, since you're the host of this, TV show? Like, do you feel like, oh man, I really want that donut right now, but what if somebody recognizes me? Do you ever feel like there's that pressure?
Yeah, so, to a certain extent, yes. And by the way, I'll never forget that moment, because even when I was loading up on that macaroni salad, and I think I even had like an oatmeal cookie on my plate, I was like, just watch my luck. I'm going to step into that elevator with Drew. And sure enough, as soon as that door opened, I'm like, come on, like, what are the chances? And then of course I had to throw out an excuse like, oh yeah, I hit heavy legs today, bro. But,
that's funny, man.
And of course as trainers we can get away with it, or I can like throw out some kind of scientific jargon and be like, yeah, my glycogen stores were super low, and so I just needed to super compensate, the vastus lateralis. So normally I can sweet and talk my way out of a situation like that. But it's funny because, to a certain extent, obviously as trainers and being in the public eye, and you understand this just as well as anybody, is there is a certain amount of pressure to live that healthy lifestyle. And fortunately I know I can speak for you too, because, we've known each other for years. 80% of the time we do, It's funny because living this for a long time now, I know as far as like the amount of calories I'm eating every day, I know when I'm getting 3,100 calories. I know when I'm getting 2,700 calories. I know when I'm getting 35 grams of protein in a shake. I know when I'm getting a cup of rice, I'm eating 42 grams of carbs.
Yeah.
So the thing is, like, subconsciously, I'm always doing math in my head.
Yeah.
And so it's always there. And typically, if I would say 80% of the time, most of my food choices are good.
Yeah.
But it's funny because, and it's always ironic, because typically when my food choices aren't so good, I'm usually in public. and that's usually when somebody recognizes me and they want to take a picture. It's
exactly. I know.
You're holding your donut and you're like,
yes.
Sure.
It's so ironic. And so,
you know what though? Like, I love that about you. Actually, yesterday when we were interviewing your wife, and she said, Chris is the one that has the sweet tooth. And I laughed because, like, that's always me. Like, anytime I'd send Drew to the store and I'm like, can you pick up some ice cream? Or can you pick up donuts? He's like, no.
Yeah, and I'm always
what if
worried.
someone sees me? What if someone recognizes me? I'm like,
totally. But you know what, also, like, especially for us, we've learned really cool tricks of the trade to actually make it count. So the thing is, like, look, I'm not going to, and my weakness right now, I go in phases. Yeah. So, like, I just came off of this huge cereal phase. And I'm not talking, all brand. We're talking
Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Which, by the way, we even have a name for it. We call it the CTC in our household. So yes, Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
That is funny.
I was all about Cocoa Krispies, Golden Grams. I mean, we're talking.
The good
I came off this huge cereal kick. And now I'm on to those cookies and cream milkshakes from Chick-fil-A.
Oh my gosh!
It's real ice cream, by the way.
Oh,
so
that their peach from Chick-fil-A is to die for.
Okay, you guys are making me hungry now. You guys are making me hungry.
Well, but keep in mind, for anybody listening. So here's the deal: like, before I indulge in something like that, number one, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to hit like a really good body part that I want to focus on growing.
Yeah.
So it's like, look, before I'm going to indulge in a milkshake, or I'm going to have, a couple bowls of cereal, well, I'm going to hit my legs hard, or I'm going to focus on my shoulders, or I'm going to hit a heavy wad, a good CrossFit wad that's going to be hitting all the muscle parts of my body. And then of course, right before I'm going to indulge in cereal or ice cream or whatever other, junk food that I want, I'm going to push a bunch of protein in there so that I know that I'm going to get maximum growth. And so basically it's like, it's strategically eating junk food so I can get what I want, but it's also benefiting me in the long run.
Yeah.
So, it's really cool. It's cool when you know the science of it, because now we can constantly manipulate it and get what we want and get closer to our goals. And you can eat that stuff without derailing you.
Yeah, it's a knowledge thing. People have to understand that there's a place for it, and this is how you use it, right, to your advantage. Instead of like, hey, Chris eats CTC, I can eat it too. It works for him, but you got to know how to eat it and when to eat it, right?
That's just it. It's almost like, and when you know better, you almost feel like you're cheating the system because But at the same time, it's like you use it to your advantage, and you can actually use it to benefit you. So
yeah, and I love that.
stuff.
And like Chris said, I think a big key of it is because people sometimes even will get on my case. Like, it seems like you're eating a lot of junk. And it's funny you said that, because I could totally justify it too. And a lot of times I'll be like, hey, I'm eating this donut post legs, and actually having that glycogen like push right back into my muscles is actually going to help with recovery. And like you said, I pair that with a protein to also make sure that I don't spike my insulin levels too much. So it's like you can like strategically eat. But the big key here is, like Chris said, he eats healthy 75-80% of the time.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
It's not like he's eating it every day, all day long.
Yeah,
so that's
exactly.
Right.
So Chris, kind of shifting gears here, I had a lot of people submit questions on Facebook, and like the number one thing people wanted to know is, who was Chris Powell before extreme weight loss? Like, people want to get to know who you were, your story, which led up to extreme weight loss, and like your struggles back then, and what what you went through to become like this. Everyone knows you now as the host of Extreme Weight Loss, but who were you before?
Sure. Well, how long do we have in this podcast?
6 hours. We have a 6 hour time limit. I'm just kidding.
It's a long story. Well, I tell you what. So, just to kind of fill everyone in on a little bit of backstory.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I never thought I was going to be a trainer. Training was something that I loved for myself.
Yeah.
It empowered me. I felt it's what made me feel good about myself, especially when I was growing up, because I was the tiniest kid in school. And I remember I was picked on a lot. And when I was 14, my parents actually got me my very first weight set. And I came home from school one day, and they could tell that it was really starting to wear on me. It was kind of breaking my spirit. Came home from school one day, and all the furniture in the living room was cleared out, and there's a weight set in the middle of the living room floor. And I didn't know what to do with it for the first couple of weeks, and I just started messing around on the thing. And after a month, I was hooked, because I started to see and feel differences in my body. I started to notice I was getting stronger. And then before I knew it, even though I was still the smallest kid in school, I was the strongest.
Yeah.
And so that's what really started my passion. But to back up a little bit, my dad was always my hero. And he was a fighter pilot in the military growing up. And then he went into the airlines. So he was an airline pilot. And that's what I wanted to do.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, so I have a secret passion for airplanes. I could name every airplane you could ever possibly imagine. I know all the stats on them. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Chris! I just fell in love with you. No offense, Heidi. I mean, Chris, I used to fly a Cessna 152. No joke.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. Okay, but back to you. Sorry, keep going.
Awesome. Well, so I got my private pilot's license in a Cessna 152.
Wow.
And actually the first plane I ever flew was a Taylorcraft. I don't know if you know those very, very well, but they're old cloth. We're talking stick and rudder.
Yeah, seriously.
They're made of wood and cloth. It's an old Taylorcraft. And then I ended up getting my private pilot's license when I was 17 years old, and it was actually a really fun way to ask my date to the prom. As I took her flying, and then of course we and my buddies and toilet paper, in a field drew out, "Would you go to prom with me?" So of course I was a man in high school for that, so that was fun. So I got my private when I was 17, and believe it or not, in college, that's actually how I made my money in college. Even though I was studying exercise science because it was my own personal passion. I was actually a flight instructor in college. So I went and got my instrument rating, commercial rating, multi-engine rating. I was a multi-engine flight instructor, building hours to go to the airlines when I was in college. And so, I've got almost over 1,200 hours flying now.
Nice.
And believe it or not, I actually had an airline interview on September 13th, 2001.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yep.
Crazy.
So needless to say, my suit was being tailored when my girlfriend at the time called me up and she said, "Hey, turn on the TV. You're not going to believe this." And obviously I saw everything that happened. And for the first thing I thought was, my dad's on a trip. I freaked out because I was thinking, was one of those airplanes, was it Northwest? Or actually, I think it was, he was Northwest at the time. And so then they were bought by Delta. And so I was freaking out because I knew he was on the East Coast. I knew he was flying.
Oh, that's crazy.
And my heart sank when everything happened, and I just thought, there's going to be so many long-term ramifications for this in so many ways. And obviously it just, the consequences were just so profound for so many people in so many different professions. And sure enough, obviously the airline industry really suffered after that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With fires and furloughs, there's no way I could have gotten a job after that. So, after September 11th, on September 12th, 2001, I made the decision. I said, you know what? I don't think flying is the direction I'm going to go. I love training. This is my passion. It's what I love to do. I walked right into the local gym. I said, hey, I've got a degree in exercise science. It's my passion. I would love to be a trainer here. They gave me a job. And
Wow.
so
Awesome.
it was a crazy kind of twist and turn of events.
Okay.
And so sure enough, that's when it all started. And within a couple months, training's been a passion for me. And like, obviously when I'm excited about something, I can't be quiet about it.
Yeah.
Clearly I talk a lot. And so I was that trainer in the gym who was like always excited. And, when my client would demonstrate proper form, I'd get all fired up. And so sure enough, within a couple months, I just had a full roster. I had a waiting list.
Oh, wow.
And, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And I was doing what I loved and the days were flying by. And I started thinking about how I could grow my business and how I could take this to another level. And sure enough, here in Arizona, there's some awesome morning news shows. And so a buddy of mine, he worked over at KTVK, which is News Channel 3. And he's like, hey, you should come in sometime, check it out. So I walked in there and I said, hey, who is one of the producers here for the news segments? They pointed me over to this one lady's desk. They said, oh, go talk to her. So I walked over there. I said, hi, my name's Chris. I have a degree in exercise science. I love training. I've got a few ideas that I would love to do for a news segment. Would you give me a shot? And she's like, well, gosh, nobody ever asks me that. Yeah, you want to do something Monday? And it was so wild because it was like, so many people, they watch TV or they listen to the radio and they're like, oh, I could never do that. Seriously, these producers are always looking for new ideas.
Yeah. All
you got to do is ask. I literally just walked in and asked if I could do a spot on the morning news. And they're like, well, yeah, no one ever asks us that. So
that's awesome.
Sure enough, that Monday, so that ended up, that Monday, I ended up doing a gig on Good Morning Arizona. And it did well. And so a couple Mondays later, I did another one. And before you know it, I'm doing a regular spot as the fitness guy on Good Morning Arizona.
Yeah.
So
and you weren't getting paid for this, right? This was all just for free, or
this is just passion. This is just having fun and getting out there and talking to the residents of Arizona about stuff that I loved.
Yeah.
And at first it was funny because it was all very scientific. It was like, hey, how to increase your bench press and how to run a faster 40. And they're like, and then she pulls me aside. She's like, hey, everybody wants to know about weight loss. So the more you can talk about weight loss, the more people are going to watch. So we started doing a lot more weight loss segments. And then something really interesting and really cool started happening. A lot of people started writing in that were 400, 500, 600 pounds. And I realized that there's a subculture of people out there that are super obese, but they pride themselves on being invisible. They're here and they have a voice and they want help. But we don't know about them because they're hidden in their homes.
Yeah.
So I started doing more segments kind of geared toward large weight loss. And even though I didn't have a whole lot of experience with it myself, I just kind of banked on my education.
Yeah.
And then I got an email from this one gentleman. This is June 2003. And he wrote in, he was just a year older than I was. And he said he was 635 pounds. The doctor had just left his basement because he hadn't left his house in 2 years.
Wow.
And it told him he wasn't going to live another couple of years. And he was scared to die. And that email, it haunted me for a good week and a half. And I thought about it. And then I emailed him back. I just said, hey, I just want to meet you. And so this is the summer of 2003. I just went over to his house one day. We sat down. We talked for 15, 30 minutes. And I said, look, I have no idea where this is going to go, but I'll see you on Tuesday. Showed up every other day for 2 years, and he ended up losing 400 pounds.
Damn.
Yeah, man, that's crazy.
It was wild. And through that process, it opened my eyes to a whole new world of transformation. But for me, it was so scientific at first. I didn't realize that emotionally, all these other things that I was satisfying, that I was fulfilling for him emotionally. I was his friend, I was his confidant, I was his accountability, and it was such an amazing experience of transformation, not just for him but for me, and opened my eyes to a whole new world of fulfilling, like just of feeling fulfilled.
Yeah.
So that's actually when, over the course of after those 2 years, I spent another 2 years rounding up some of my doctor friends, getting him surgeries, eyes, teeth, everything, and helping him complete his transformation.
Yeah.
And he ended up posting his pics, his before and after pics, on a social media site that some of us might know. I'm about to date myself here. It's called MySpace.
For those of you kids out there that never heard of
you
it.
have no
Oh
idea
my
what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right?
Old
Yep.
school.
So good old MySpace back in the day.
Yeah.
And sure enough, some websites found his before and after pictures, and they were just so profound. They posted them, and it went viral.
Yeah.
So within a couple of weeks, we were producers from The View and 2020 and Oprah and the doctors. They reached out to us and they would say, "Hey, come on our show. We want to talk about this amazing journey."
Yeah.
And so we ended up doing that, and so this is all over the course of like another 6 months. So it's like 2 years for his transformation, 2 years for all of his surgeries, and then probably a year of this crazy media whirlwind. And then TLC contacted us. They wanted to shoot a documentary on his transformation.
Wow.
And that's so all of this stuff happened before extreme weight loss ever came about.
Wow.
In the meantime, as a trainer, I would continue training. I was trying to develop this nutrition system that I was so passionate about. I made some really bad investments and ended up losing all of my money.
Really?
Because I'm a good trainer, but I'm a terrible businessman. I'll tell you that straight up. Dude, it's so funny because and everyone knows that trainers can't count. So when it comes to money and business, dude, I can take a business and run it into the ground real fast.
Okay.
But
interesting.
I can help people transform. So I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses now. So I ran a business into the ground, lost everything.
Wow.
And it's crazy because, here I am on TV, like helping, known for like helping this gentleman change his life. And I was running these amazing boot camps with all these super obese individuals and we're creating transformations. But in the meantime, financially, I was broke. I lost everything. I actually ended up living out of my car for 6 months. And believe it or not, when I was living out of my car for almost 5 months, that's when David, my buddy who I helped transform, his family said, "Hey, come over here and sleep on our couch until you get back on your feet."
Wow.
So I
man.
actually slept on his couch for 3 months while I slowly got back on my feet and started earning some money again. And when I started making some money, I started renting a house. David, my buddy who I helped transform, who lost the 400 pounds, moved in with me and we lived together for 2 years.
Wow.
And actually it was when I got back on my feet, just 2 months after I got back on my feet, and I started renting this house, is when I went to a self-improvement seminar to try to just figure myself out, try to figure out like what went wrong, how I can improve, and that's actually where I met my lovely wife Heidi.
Isn't that where you asked her something like, "Hey, nice arms. What do you do to work out?"
Yes, that's when I dropped the cheesiest pickup line on her, and clearly it worked.
So
from that moment. The TLC documentary that we ended up shooting, that aired, and when it aired, it became this really popular documentary on TLC, like the most viewed documentary on TLC like in years.
Wow.
So I was doing so we did another media tour, and after the media tour, a production company from Los Angeles, they actually produced the show The Biggest Loser that was on air for a few years at this time. They reached out and they said, "Hey, it's awesome that you're doing these transformations. We'd like to talk to you." And so sure enough, I grabbed my girlfriend at the time, who was Heidi, and we would drive out to Los Angeles. We sat there with a creative team in front of a whiteboard, and we helped them create the concept of what we want transformations to be on television, and we told them right off the bat, we said, "Hey, like when it comes to transformation, we need time, we need a full year." And they said, "No, it's never going to happen."
Yep.
But sure enough, we created the concept. They said, "Okay, well, we'll pitch it and just see where it goes." So phones went dead for a couple months. Never heard anything after that. And we thought, well, you know what, it was a nice try. We pitched the show and it just, there's no traction.
Yeah.
One day, I get a phone call from the CEO of the production company. He's like, "Dude, we just sold your show."
At what point in time how far after you pitched it did that happen though?
About 2 months.
Okay,
About
so
2
2
months
months.
after,
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's so cool.
And I was like, "Well, so who bought it?" And so I was thinking, they'd probably tell me like a cable network, and which I was like, obviously that's thrilled. If anybody picks up your show, that's a major win.
Yeah.
He's like, no, dude, ABC, the network bought it.
Whoa.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah. And then my next question was actually, so who's the guy? Because we were developing this show for a celebrity trainer to be the face of it. And they're like, there's like a pause. And he's like, well, you're the guy.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. So what does that mean?
Yeah.
He says, it means pack your bags. You're hitting the road in 5 weeks.
Whoa, man.
And
cool.
Here we are 5 years later. So sorry for the long story.
No,
but that's what the show
thank
came
you
about.
so much,
I
man.
love the long story.
Yeah, I think that's what people.
Of course.
I think that's what people want to know is like how did it come about? Like, what's the backstory? Because so many people love the show. I mean, here we are, season 5, super successful show. Season 6 is already filming or already being cast.
We're underway.
Yeah, so I mean that's awesome for people to kind of see where you came from, and I mean we could go on for hours about the struggles you went through, and you losing all your money, and like I'm sure we could go into all of that, but just so people know, like you were living out of your car at one point in time, and then here you are now, just super successful. And I think that's motivational for people to hear that story.
Yeah, and I also think it actually sheds a huge light on a lot of things. Like, I mean, we know because we met you, we were able to see how genuine you and Heidi are. But a lot of people, I see the comments on Facebook or Instagram about how you guys seem so genuine and considerate and loving and concerning and how you are with your clients. And I think a lot of that stems because of your guys' background, the experiences that you guys went through, the fact that you had lost everything and you had been, down and coming back from that. I think that's why you can relate so well to your clients and to everybody else. I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. And thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it. For the longest time, and I'll be totally honest, especially when I was losing everything and when I was living out of my car, it was without a doubt, it's something I had to go through. It's one of the biggest blessings in my life and one of the biggest struggles, but I was bitter.
Yeah.
When I lost everything, I was really bitter. I was bitter with the world. I'll be honest, I was bitter with God. I was like, I am trying to do good in this world. I'm trying to create, something that's going to help a lot of people. Why are you doing this to me? Like, why me? Because like, I'm trying to help. And I didn't realize that they were all lessons that I needed to learn.
Yeah.
And I'll be totally honest, there was a lot of ego involved. Because yes, I wanted to do good, but at the same time, it was like I wanted to be recognized for it, and it was more about me. And even though my intentions were good, it was still about me. And once I had to let that go and be like, you know what? I'm going to ask for help now, because it's funny because I was already on TV, and I was already known for helping David through his transformation. So I was still trying to be like that guy who's got it all, and oh yeah, he's got everything taken care of, and yeah, he's coming up and he's doing great. And so everything needed to be taken away from me because I wasn't doing great. I was struggling, and I had so much ego in the way, and I was trying to be something I wasn't. And so it was the most necessary thing in the world, and especially for me to just reach out and ask for help. And the people I asked for help was the people that I helped, and they extended grace to me, and that changed everything for me. And that's when it was the most humbling thing I could have ever experienced in my life, and it gave me a whole new sense of appreciation for the blessings that I have now and the opportunities that I have now, because this opportunity with what we're doing on the show, it's amazing, and it won't be here forever.
Yeah.
And so I am appreciating every second of it, every moment of it, and we're going to try to do as much good as we possibly can in this time that we have.
Yeah, and I really do see like such a huge connection though, and I love hearing about you changing your life, and then seeing you do that and facilitate that in your TV show. Keeping that in mind, what would you say is one of like the biggest things or biggest pieces of advice that you give to your contestants or to your community in general on what you can do to change your life, to change your circumstances?
I think the biggest piece of advice that I can give to anybody is I'm going to go back to the biggest thing that changed my life, and that's finally being vulnerable, finally accepting the reality of a situation. It's because when you finally take it for what it is, And a lot of times it can be a little bit painful, the reality of the situation. But at the same time, it's in that moment when you can accept it for what it is. That's the moment that you're pliable, you're open for growth, and you can finally change and make your life better. And so, and a lot of times when I say vulnerable, most people think, oh, well, vulnerable, that's weakness. No, it's not. That's not weakness at all. In fact, vulnerability really it's the greatest marker of courage. I mean, like, how often have you sat there listening to somebody talk about some of the struggles that they've been through? They're like, oh, I'm an addict, or, I went through this struggle. I lost everything financially, and then I was able to overcome it. And when people say that, I mean, rarely do you ever think, oh, you're a loser. No, it's like, wow, because here's the deal. We're all human, and we're all totally perfectly imperfect. And the thing is, when someone is vulnerable, it creates that much more of a connection with everybody else around them. Because if you try to pretend like everything is perfect all the time, and you're what we call just pretendo all the time, and you're always putting on that face for everybody else, there's no connection there. There's no growth. There's no I'm trying to think of the word that Stephen Covey uses. It's that interdependence. It's there's no ability to actually work with other people together as a team to get you where you want to go.
Yeah.
And so what we're looking for, when people are looking to change their lives, and when Heidi and I are actually looking for the perfect candidates for change, it's those individuals that are vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's the ones that come to us, and especially in like the first couple of weeks when we're working with them, and it's funny because a lot of people will try to pretend like they're going to be our perfect transformation. I'm going to do everything perfectly. I'm going to do everything right.
Yeah.
What we look for is the individual that comes to us after a few days and says, "Hey, I struggled last night and I end up eating a whole pizza." And they're in tears, and they're open, and they're vulnerable, and we go, "Wow, now that took courage."
Yeah.
Because most of these individuals, they think that's it. That my chance of actually of getting this change, this life-changing transformation is over. But they're being open and honest and real, and that's the courage that it takes to truly transform.
Yeah.
Vulnerability is not easy. In fact, it is the most difficult step of transformation, of being open and honest and real and raw. But it's also the most freeing thing for all of us, because we all have this ego that's protecting us, that wants to look good for everybody else. But when we can get that out of the way, we can truly be self-expressed, and we can free ourselves from whatever's holding us back, and we can totally change our lives forever. So that's my advice, and that's my challenge to everybody out there, is to totally be open, honest, real, and vulnerable, and watch and see that it won't just change your life, but it'll also change the lives of other people around you. Just watch, because when you're vulnerable with other people, the most common answer that you're going to hear from other people around you, when you open up about your struggles and where you feel like you might be slipping or where you've gone wrong in life, everyone else around you is going to go, "Oh, well, me too. Well, me too." And then you realize that you're not alone. You're not alone.
That's huge, man. No, and I've had to learn that the hard way, to be honest with you. Like, being vulnerable, there's strength that comes from that. Whereas before, I looked at it as a weakness and trying to be perfect on the outside my whole entire life. And it is so freeing when you finally do get the courage to be vulnerable. And I think that's super powerful for everybody to hear. And it has nothing to do with weight loss per se. Like, it has to do with everything in your life in general, from other struggles or addictions, things like that. But it can help with weight loss as well.
I got to tell you, it's like one of the most amazing applications of vulnerability I've ever had is with my wife.
Uh-huh.
I mean, how many times, I can't tell you how many times we've been in a crazy argument, and really all I'm trying to do is just be right. It's a power struggle.
Oh, man.
And I'm guilty. I'm totally guilty, until I finally take a couple steps back. I see it for what it is, and I'm realizing, hey, I'm being a jerk right now. This is all about power, and I'm just trying to enforce me being right over her. And the moment that I'm actually vulnerable, and I'll tell her that, I'll be like, "Wow, babe, I'm so sorry. This has totally been a power struggle on my part.
Yeah.
I'm going to be vulnerable right now, and I'm just going to tell you exactly how I truly feel." then all of a sudden she opens up and our communication, it goes to a whole new level. But when that happens, our relationship goes to a whole new level as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's so much application for this. And yeah, you're spot on, Drew. It's not about weight loss. It's about life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
It's so true, man. Thank you for sharing that. And that's what I love about you and Heidi being so open, talking about struggles that you guys have. Kind of going back to the show, Extreme Weight Loss. There's so many success stories that happen from the TV show. But my question for you, and you can even maybe talk about David as well. What do you think the number one struggle for people is after the show? Once the cameras are gone, once the lights are gone, once the fame and all that glory is gone, what do you think people struggle with the most once their episode's over?
Yeah, it's accountability, without a doubt. The fact. And I'm going to talk about ego again here.
Sure.
When I say ego, there's always a negative connotation with ego. And I don't want there to be in this conversation here, because ego is something that we all have. And it's that driving force that always makes us want to look good in front of other people.
Yeah.
Ego is one of the most powerful tools that we actually have in the transformations that we do on the show, because you have these individuals, they're going through this incredibly difficult journey of change. It takes a ton of courage, but such a huge driving force also is, and it adds this amazing level of accountability, is the fact that at the end of the year, their story will be told no matter what.
Yeah.
They get to make the end of their story. We tell them all this the very first day. You write the end of your story. And whether the end of your story is me, say, walking you into a rehabilitation facility, or you not getting surgery, or me raising your arms over your head because you hit your goal.
Yeah.
You write the end of it. And everybody, I mean, nobody wants to look bad. I mean, we're human. And so the one thing the one major driving forces for all humans is we want to be loved, and we want that connection. We want to be desired by everybody. So it is such a powerful force for all these individuals, because every single one of those cast members, they want to look good at the end.
Yeah.
And so so that's what keeps them accountable on a huge level, because it's not like they're answering to their family and friends. No, they're answering to 4 million
nation,
Americans.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, and not just America, but in 148 countries worldwide, their show is going to be aired. So there's a lot of pressure there, and unbeknownst to them, it's that constant driving force. It's under the surface. They don't always talk about it all the time, but it's always there. And then all of a sudden, the cameras go away.
Yep.
And they're at their goal. And what's funny is that the whole time they were losing weight, there's these amazing payoffs. I mean, every time they'd run into someone who hasn't seen them, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you look so good," and they're sacrificing an emotional need that they had for food. But at the same time, with that sacrifice, every week they step on the scale, they're getting a payoff. The scale's going down 3 pounds, or it's going down 5 pounds. Everyone's telling them how good they look. Now, all of a sudden, not only do the cameras go away, but every time they step on the scale, it says the same thing. There's no more payoff on the scale.
Yeah.
And it's not like everyone, people coming up to them, they're like, "Oh, dude, you're killing it in maintenance. Great job, man. You're staying the same weight." No.
That's so true.
Nobody says that, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to start saying that now. I'm going to start saying that.
Right, totally.
Yeah.
And you know what, though? Do you know how far that would go for individuals who have actually gone through the journey? They need to hear that, because they're still sacrificing. They're still sacrificing that addiction that they had. And if they haven't found another purpose, and they're not training for something, and they're not moving towards something, they're finding themselves in a very dangerous situation, because they're seeking a reward. We're human.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what we need. We need a payoff on something.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, obviously, right off the bat, Heidi and I were always asking people, what's the next thing you're going to do? What's your next goal? You always have to keep setting those goals, or you will find yourself neck deep back in your addiction. So, and a handful of them do.
Yeah.
They really struggle with that. So that's the biggest thing, is that a lot of our individuals, their biggest struggle when it's all said and done is that they don't continue goal setting. As much as Heidi and I try to hammer it into them, if they don't set those goals, a lot of them, they might set one goal because Heidi and I will pressure them to, but if they don't continue to set goals, and they don't continue to move towards something and train for something to get that reward, they'll find themselves basically backsliding back into their addiction.
Yeah. And you know what? I plan on having on like people like Bruce Pitcher, who's a perfect example of staying accountable after the show, and
Yes.
kind of picking his brain to help people with maintaining once they've reached their goal. Like, okay, how do you live this lifestyle afterwards? Because for so many years or decades you've lived this way. Now all of a sudden you're at your goal. Now what? And Bruce is a great person to have on as a perfect example. I plan on having a bunch of the people from the show on, but kind of shifting gears here again, Chris, because I know we're running out of time. I have to ask every guest this question on the show because I want to tie in my Fit2Fat2Fit experience and what I learned from it.
Yes.
But first off, let me ask you: have you ever been overweight in your life?
No, I've never been overweight.
Okay.
I've always been on the opposite end of the spectrum. I've always been underweight.
I can relate to that. For sure. Would you ever do a Fit2Fat2Fit experiment? I have to ask, man. I have to ask.
Absolutely not. And boy, I tell you what, kudos to you for actually going through that process. And I'm sure, it created such a profound awareness for you for what the journey really is like, not physically, but emotionally, because I really couldn't imagine, just even in helping our own people through their weight loss journeys, it is so daunting, and it is a struggle. And it takes a lot of courage to create change, but granted, obviously, like you see them as they're going through the process, and as they make it, as they continue on the journey, it gets easier and easier. But I must say, Drew, what you did, gaining all that weight and then turning around and losing it, it really is impressive what you were able to put yourself through. And once again, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. It's a heck of a struggle. I know, I'm not sure if you can even talk about this, but I know some of the other coaches and trainers that have recently been going through the process that you went through on the show that's going to be coming out here pretty soon. Boy, just hearing some of their stories, because I know a handful of them personally, I know it was quite the struggle for them. And honestly, I don't know if I could handle it. I don't know if I could.
Yeah, no, it's not a super serious question. I just like to ask each guest on the show, like, if they've ever been overweight, or if they would do this Fit2Fat2Fit experiment.
And you answered no just as quickly as your wife.
Yeah, you answered just like, of course not.
Yeah.
But anyways, because for me, I learned a lot from it. And I don't think every trainer needs to go through it to gain a better understanding. But for me, it was something that I needed to go through. And I think a lot of people can gain a better understanding seeing it from someone else's perspective, or walking a mile in someone else's shoes, or even if it's a quarter of a mile. But anyways, okay, let's say you did do this, Chris.
Sure.
What foods would you eat for 6 months? What would be your diet?
Yeah, I think we've addressed a couple of the foods I would eat right off the bat, which would be, a lot of CTC. It's probably a lot of Cocoa Krispies, some Golden Grahams. So I would eat a ton of breakfast cereal, and I wouldn't use almond milk. I would use whole milk for sure.
Milk,
maybe just cream.
Oh,
You
yeah.
just pour cream in there.
Cream straight from the cow.
Absolutely. And then, of course, I'm a milkshake kind of guy, so I put down a ton of cookies and cream milkshakes. I would eat so many peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, it would be ridiculous.
That is so funny.
Because I love them. And, gosh, what else? I love me some just good old-fashioned bacon and eggs. So I'd go big there. Just all the good old-fashioned stuff.
Gotcha.
Pizza every once in a while, I could definitely do that.
Yeah.
But I'm just a kind of classic food kind of guy. Oh, fried chicken. I love fried chicken and fries. Hold on, guys.
Okay, you're making us hungry now, Chris.
I'm going down a slippery slope here.
No, what's even funnier is, like, I love your answer would be like my answer. Like, I'm like, well, this. And
this.
Your wife was basically like, maybe donuts or sticky buns.
She didn't really have an idea. Chris is like 30 minutes later, still going.
He's like, I could eat.
That's the thing.
Oh my
It's
God.
funny because like every food I come up with, I'm like, oh, wait a second. Oh, if I can have anything,
Yeah.
that sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Okay.
I'm spicing it up. I'm wrapping it up with the same way. I don't know if Heidi warned you. I'm hoping she didn't. I'm wrapping it up the same way. This is where I ask you several random fun questions
Just
that
quick answers.
really
Oh, boy.
have no rhyme or reason, that you are
boy.
completely unprepared for, and you have to answer them as quickly as possible and as fast as possible.
Okay, so this is going to be some hard-hitting journalism, huh?
Yes. Are you ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready. Go ahead.
Okay. Favorite dessert?
All I can think of is fried chicken right now.
Okay, favorite
done.
dessert, fried chicken. Next. Your biggest pet peeve about Heidi?
She's got an obsession with Starbucks, and we go 3 times a day, and it drives me nuts.
Okay, your most embarrassing moment?
Well, all I can think of right now is I was deadlifting in the gym the other day with a bunch of people around, and I farted. It was really loud.
Oh my god.
Okay, love it.
True story.
I freaking love it.
And Drew, I know you can appreciate that because when you're lifting heavy, you can't control it.
You can't.
Oh my gosh,
man.
I
When you're
freaking love that.
deadlifting 600 pounds, dude.
Okay.
Everything comes out.
Okay, your favorite CrossFit WOD and why? Drew obviously had that one because it doesn't really matter.
Girl wads.
Cindy, because I'm good at it. I can grind through Cindy like none other. Real quick, I'm dying to know Drew's. Drew's, what's yours?
Oh my gosh, favorite WOD.
I don't know if I have a favorite, to be honest with you, because they're all hell.
Yeah.
Mine is, you know what? I'm not really good at the names of them. What's the one that is? It's push-ups, pull-ups, body squats.
Oh, that's Cindy.
Cindy. Oh yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's mine too, dude.
Oh my gosh, you guys are twinners.
I'm like 20.
Nice.
I can't remember if it's 23 rounds or 25 rounds.
Wow, that's awesome.
Anyways.
Okay, two more. Last 2 most important questions. Would you ever switch over to the Nike Metcons? That was a joke.
Oh,
No,
no,
but seriously.
I'm Reebok all the way.
Reebok is listening. Reebok's listening. No, I had some of my CrossFit buddies tell me to ask you
Too
that.
funny. Okay, any plans for another tattoo?
Absolutely. I want to get a Phoenix. I need to get a Phoenix. It's part of my journey, and I've been talking about it for years. And it's funny because I want it to cover my back, and Heidi is like cringing every time I talk about it.
You need to get a beard and a Phoenix tattoo.
I love it.
And Heidi
Yes,
will
I know.
drive her crazy.
You survived the gauntlet of random
Yes.
questions at the end.
Thank you so much, Chris. We really appreciate your time, man.
Oh, guys, you're the best.
Where do you want me to send people? Where do you want me to send people to get
Find
in
out
touch
more
with
about you guys.
Just send them to my website, chrispowell.com, or they can always follow us on any of our social media handles at Real Chris Powell.
Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. We really hope you guys enjoyed it. We really hope you guys enjoy the podcast and the content and the people that we're bringing to you through this podcast. We really appreciate you guys listening. We'd really appreciate it if you went to iTunes and subscribed to our podcast and left a review. We definitely would appreciate that. And go to Fit2Fat2Fit.com or 2fitathome.com and sign up for our newsletter so you guys can stay in touch with us and know everything that's going on. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys next time.